Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning into this webcast of the amazing Ben. We've been talking very much around the subject of supplementation. Should we not? How do we sort of work with our clients in the best ethical way? So this is going to be a webcast full of gems of information from Ben's experience. There's probably going to be some nutritional sort of tips in there as well, but the main focus is making sure that it's aligning beautifully to your business. So we both felt that there's some misunderstanding, and I think for any of you listening in, you probably recognize that there's a little bit of misuse around this subject. And I can actually, through the experience of working in this industry for a long time, sort of recognize why sometimes PTs have almost felt forced to do that. So let's dig in deep with the amazing Ben. Ben, would you please give us a brief introduction of who you are and why you've joined us today? First thing, I need to say thank you so much for spending your time with us.
No, pleasure. I'm excited. Thank you. My name's Ben Coomber, dad of two girls, been in the industry for 17 years. So became a personal trainer when I was 20, over time specialized in nutrition through really valuing and seeing the power of nutrition. So I used to be obese before I became a personal trainer. And it was that incredible transformation and journey that really I felt was through nutrition that led me to have a huge interest in nutrition. So I became a trainer, then sort of went on to study sports performance and coaching at Hull University as a mature student. Within that was working with kids in sport, was running retreats all around the world. I was a personal trainer freelance as well. I also worked as an assistant strength coach for a professional rugby league team. And all of those jobs were good because they allowed me to create the career path that I really wanted in fitness. We all know there's a lot of different jobs you can do in fitness. It's not just be a coach, be a trainer. There's lots of jobs that we can do in various parts of the sector. So I ended up becoming an online nutrition coach in 2008, built a online nutrition coaching company. Then we moved into education, been in education since 2013, built a supplement company in 2016. I've always been a big fan of, putting a good message out there, trying to correct some of the BS that we're all fighting as coaches out there and empowering people. So lots of different jobs, lots of different things. Wrote a book, How to Be an Awesome Personal Trainer, which has helped a lot of coaches to date. And here I am today, full time, still trying to do the education brand, help people thing, and running my supplement company, Awesome Supplements.
Love that. You've managed quite a bit. I've been in the industry over 30 years and I'm thinking you've done more than me. Anyway, look, Ben, thank you, like I said, for joining us. I think one of the things that's always sort of interesting, we sort of, before we get onto webcasts, there's, research in the background, making sure that we cover all the things that we think are really pertinent to you fitness professionals out there. But I sort of said to Ben, just checking in with him beforehand, like, what do you really want to be getting across in this webcast? And basically, boom, he just literally smashed it. And so what I'm actually going to ask him to do is basically repeat what he said, because it was not word for word, don't worry, Ben. But I sort of put it across to you of like, what would you like to cover in this session? And it was around the idea of values and business and alignment and stuff. So over to you to sort of explain what we're going to try and achieve in this brief webcast.
So, having coached thousands of coaches over the years through our education programs, there was always a big, scary leap for a lot of people of getting their training and actually becoming like a business owner. Because when you're a coach, you're not just a coach, you're usually there's some kind of self-employed aspect or entrepreneurial aspect to your job in so many parts of our sector. And that is problematic because it's then a multi-skilled thing that you're doing. Unless you're starting out as a gym instructor and you're just on the gym floor and you're kind of just doing the work that you've kind of been asked to do by the gym company or whatever. And within all of that, there's this then business conversation. And business and the business of coaching other people, for me, really has to start kind of like blue sky. You have to zoom right out and go, right. And we always talk about this, like, who do you want to coach? So that conversation of who do you want to coach, who's your ideal client, is a conversation around like values. So what do I value in life? Well, for example, I'm a dad. I have two girls, so I value family time. I value presence. I value setting a good example to my kids. I value lots of things that actually would make me a great coach to maybe a lot of people in my situation, because I have a certain amount of lived experience. I know the troubles of, navigating all of that in day-to-day life. And what I can do is I can build a business around what I'm valuing. So when a coach, trainer, therapist looks to set up their business, we have to consider the things that we value, how that's seen and represented through all of our business, collateral, social media, website, behavior, activity. Because if we don't, it doesn't look congruent. And a lot of people that struggle in our industry struggle because they don't earn enough money. And money is a good thing because it pays for things, and it keeps us, enjoying what we're doing because we're getting the return that we feel that we value for the effort that we're putting in. So being successful for me as a coach, you have to really speak and live your values. They have to be ethically aligned, and people need to see that. It has to be represented between all of the things that make up your business, the words that come out your mouth, what they see on social media, what happens when they meet you on the gym floor or, in the clinic, etc. And all that stuff has to kind of add up. And I suppose drawing the kind of link between that and supplements, what I've seen a huge amount over my years in the world of supplements is people will have a certain set of values, but they will then go and align themselves with a supplement company or a clothing company or whatever. And it's like, hang on a second, you're like a mum of two, you're talking about all of this stuff, and you're promoting what feels like a really hardcore nutrition supplement brand, probably because that supplement company DM'd you and said, would you like to be an ambassador? We'll give you a free t-shirt, 50% off your free order, and we'll start working together and you'll kind of earn money. What that coach should have done is gone, hang on a second, this company don't even really like their products. I'm not value aligned. They sell a load of stuff that I don't even agree with.
Yep.
The evidence is questionable. Like, what am I doing? So everything has to be through a values filter. And I would really, really hope that if you came over to my social media, everything that I do, everything I say, everything I promote is congruent with my values as an individual, because then you're going to trust me. For me, it just seems like the right thing to do as a good human. And when we don't get that right, we're not successful in business. We don't enjoy our job. We feel disjointed, and that leads to people dropping out of the industry.
Absolutely. And you used the word earlier before we press record, which was kind of fragmented. And I think that, for a lot of fitness professionals, they're doing so many different things in the search to just survive in the industry, but it isn't necessarily aligning with what means something to them. And what works for you, Ben, is not going to work for somebody else. But, and I guess it's digging deep enough, isn't it? And having enough experience to know with what's aligning well with you. But, when I started in the industry, gyms would be like, right, you not only work as a trainer, but you also need to be selling products, and I'm mindful that there are sort of people almost, I was going to say, sort of targeted by companies, like you said, being DM'd by certain companies. They're almost being targeted, and perhaps not necessarily having the lived experience that you spoke about, or knowing just yet where they are in the industry. So what would your advice be to people maybe new in the industry, or who are having a bit of a, trying to find their sort of true alignment? What would your advice be to them to, I guess, know what journey that they want to be on, and what the right thing for them is to be doing?
Big question. So for
Yes.
me, when I look at my job in the industry, and I'll use myself as an example as it feels easy, one of the best things that I feel I'm good at is I feel I'm quite a good communicator. I think I can distill what feels like big concepts into quite an easy, understandable, very layman's kind of way. I
Mhm.
also have a passion for innovation and change and movement. So that over time has made me lean more in towards entrepreneurship, teaching others, speaking, educating. So I've built a business around what is ultimately my skill set. So what some people listening to this can do is go, am I doing a job right now which is congruent to my best skills? Because when people use their skills, it doesn't matter if it's in fitness or not, they're motivated to do their job because they get reward out of it because they're doing something they're good at. So when I was on the gym floor, I was a pretty good trainer, but I knew I wasn't going to be as good a trainer as I could be an educator because I
Interesting.
could just
Mm.
see myself and the skills that I had having much higher impact and leverage by doing that job. So I was a good personal trainer, but I knew I'd excel as a teacher and as a communicator.
Mm.
So over time, I made a plan to move out of my coaching role. But the coaching role was important for me because I spent a long time with real people, understanding real problems, and I wasn't able. What that enabled me to do is not talk above people, talk with people, because I'm like, I've been there and done it. I've not just turned up and educated. I've gone
Mhm.
into the trenches and done it, but then realized I have I'm not going to say greater skill, a different skill, which is to try and bring people along and educate them and empower them. So I think it's really important to know your skills and be just really honest with yourself. Like it's not a bad thing to go, oh, I'm coaching here, but I think I should really be over here. That's like, and you can stay in the industry and you can move jobs or reshape your business. It's like so many people in the industry have the desire and the goal to open their own gym. It's like the natural next step.
Yeah.
And so actually be very careful because you're no longer becoming a coach. You're becoming a business owner that probably does a bit of coaching because anyone that opens a gym and tries to become a full-time business owner and a full-time coach will burn out, lose their love of the game for it, and it will end horrendously. So you're now no longer in a coaching position, you're in a business management position because you've got to think about the overheads, the staff, the processes, the systems, all the rest of it is a very different job. Do
Yes.
you want that for yourself? So think about your skills, what it is that you want, where your values sit, how that turns up into the kind of job, and then think really broadly and make sure your values are written down. Don't just have it as like oh, I value honesty and integrity and family and all those. Like write it down and then write down how that needs to show up in your life. Like if you value family time, but you're working from 6 in the morning in the gym till 7 o'clock at night, 6 days a week, that's not you living your values. That's you being beholden by your job. So you need to make changes to make sure that you can have a successful and profitable coaching business, but also be around for your family, have time with your family, etc. And it might not be something that you can do straight away, but you work towards it. Like, I need to make these steps towards living congruent with my values. And then, when we look at our business, every touch point a customer has with us, you need to run it through your values filter. Like, does my website speak what I'm about, the values that I have? Same with my social media, same with the companies I recommend, same with the practitioners I recommend. Like, if someone loves you because you're open, kind, compassionate, and caring, and you send them to an osteopath, and the osteopath is quite bullish, direct, like abrasive in their language, that's probably not going to be a good referral because the client loves you for being that kind of person. So you probably want to refer to an osteopath that has more of that energy, caring, compassionate, loving, because it will be more congruent with how you've built your business. And
Yeah.
all of these little details matter. They really do matter over time. Um, and it will just have such a big impact on your business if you can connect all of these dots.
Yeah. And Ben, so I'm really lucky because I get to speak to people who I think, have been in the industry a long time, have really kind of done the work in their business and on themselves, and can speak with authority. And I'm kind of curious, is that where you started, or is this because you've, gone through years of sort of digging deep in this job? Did you stumble across the idea of business and, you know, because sometimes I think there's fitness professionals that feel a little bit lost. You know, they're not earning enough money. They don't know where to turn. My experience is, you know, you can offer a lot of people support in business, but they didn't get into the industry for business. They got into the industry to help people. They got into it because they liked training themselves. They got into it because their life changed through fitness, nutrition, you know, like you said, your own personal journey, right? And it aligns with that. But I think sometimes people certainly starting out don't know where they're going. They don't know what journey to take. So I'm kind of curious, have you always had that in you? Is that inherent in you, or is that something you've developed over time?
Bit of both. Mum always said that I had entrepreneurial energy and I would always do sort of certain things. But the reality is, everything given enough time is a skill that we can develop and is confidence that we can build. So, right now, you might think walking onto the gym floor is the scariest thing in the world. But with confidence and time, with skill and know how, you will gain the confidence to walk into the gym, start to talk to people, and people watching this that have done that would appreciate that. So right now, people might be watching at this webcast going, oh God, I would never do what Ben's doing, you know, talking and, you know, putting themselves on Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, that will never happen if you say that, but it could happen if you had that goal and opened your mind up to that potential and then built the skills up to slowly be able to get there. And it might be that over the course of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you develop those school skills to get you to where you want to be. Because the human brain is incredibly adaptive. You know, the science of neuroplasticity is clear. Like, we can learn a lot even in older age, where people think, oh,
Yeah.
I'm past it, like can't learn new things, can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can, but
Yeah.
so many people don't have an open enough mind to allow that to happen. Granted, there's probably a lot of early programming from parents,
Sure.
school, friends, family, all that stuff that's programmed low self-confidence, low self-worth, all the rest
Sure.
of it. But the reality is, many jobs in our industry to thrive they are multi-skilled. When I was a personal trainer, it wasn't just about being on the gym floor, it was about communicating, a bit of marketing, that kind of stuff. Now, given that, I will say, when an individual excels at their core job, sometimes the rest can take care of itself. So, what I mean by that, if you are a world-class physio and you are just brilliant at getting people out of pain, getting people moving, you're just brilliant, you might not even need a website. You might just need a Facebook page or an Instagram page. And so many people refer you because of how flipping good you are that the rest takes care of itself. So when people come to me and they're like, oh, Ben, I've just trained as a coach, I'm going to become an online coach. I'm like, that is a terrible idea because you, my friend, are not a good coach yet. And I know that because if I went back to my early coaching days when I was that green, everything was black and white, like eat this, do that, train that. I wasn't a coach yet. I didn't know compassion, communication, real empathy. I just didn't have enough hours under my belt. So the first thing I always get people to do if they're struggling is just be really freaking honest and say, how good am I at my job? Because if you are a world-class personal trainer and you get results, you should quickly build up your client list, and the chances are they won't want to leave.
Yeah.
So we still have to be brilliant at our core job.
Yeah, absolutely. But what you said is about skills. And you
Mm.
said, you know, over a number of years rather than it just taking a few weeks. And I think people are very hungry, aren't they, to be successful in business in our industry, but they do need to work on things. I was always a little surprised at how some people almost wrote off some skills, you know, that they, I don't know, for example, they might just write off the whole business side, or they might write off the social media because they're not naturally good at that. They don't care for it. You know, I understand we have to do things that align well with us. But there were some sort of things like people say, I'm not good with people's names. So I'm never going to be good at it. And I'm just thinking that's just a minor skill. Maybe there's ways that you could get better at it. But if you write yourself off at that level saying, I don't remember people's names, so I'm not going to try, I'm like, is that kind of the attitude that we need to have? And one of the things I love about, you know, supporting the FitPro community is the level of curiosity. And that's where I see people doing really well. How can I be better? What can I do? It's not just I want to be successful, it's how can I be better at something? And as you said earlier, if it's aligning to you and your values, it doesn't matter how much effort you have to put into the skills because you genuinely want to do it. It's when they're misaligned that it's a slog. Like you say, you fall out of love with that job. And that's a really hard task. So I want to now come back to supplements and that big, big topic around nutrition, which is, you know, we know that there's some misuse and some misunderstanding. Like, what is your recommendations? I mean, you have built a successful supplement company where this is, you know, you've obviously, you're very lucky. You've had a lot of insight into nutrition and stuff like this. Let's say there's someone listening here that's just starting out in supporting people in their nutritional journey. What's your advice for, you know, should they get into talking about supplements? Do they need to do a bit more nutrition? I think the reason I'm saying this is that we would see a lot of people coming into the industry with a very firm idea of what diet they'd be recommending. You know, that one size fits all. It literally would be, you know, that they're going to do it one way only. They're going to be recommending this style of nutrition stuff. So I guess I want to dig in with you about, should all fitness professionals, you know, be great around the area of nutrition? Should they be offering advice on supplementation? I mean, what is it that maybe we should be aware of? Over to you.
The first statement, should coaches be skilled in nutrition? I believe so. Clients can get to the gym 3 days a week and train with you. If you're not effectively managing that time outside of the gym, then the client isn't going to get results straight up. You have to be good at coaching nutrition, lifestyle, behavior change. All of that's really important. It's a multi-skilled job, what we do. So much of the time in nutrition, but so much of it also leans on the basics being implemented effectively and consistently over time. So I'll talk repeatedly till I'm blue in the face about sleep optimization, calories, etc., etc. What they feel like very unsexy topics, but they're very important topics, and it's our job to kind of sell them to the client. The second bit of what you asked around, like, should we be recommending supplements? Supplements are probably going to be part of the journey somewhere. That's not me saying they're essential, that we can't call them essential, they're not. But when we look at the modern world and what many clients struggle with, a lot of clients are struggling to increase their protein intake. So there's potentially a value there of a protein powder. A lot of clients are not optimal when it comes to their diet or their micronutrient intake. So there's an argument for looking at some of the key deficiencies or looking at propping up micronutrient intake to allow for optimal energy, optimal performance, recovery, etc. And then on top of that, there's certain goals that clients have that are very specific in the realm of fitness. And then we can start to say, well, cool, now we're starting to talk about muscle building, for example. So we can start to talk about creatine, which is probably the most popular supplement in muscle building, or they're into endurance. So let's start to talk about electrolytes and their training, and let's start to talk about fueling during, you know, bouts of exercise. We can talk about carbohydrate drinks. So it's pretty much always going to come up. Now, there's always this kind of contention point between coaches of like, do you recommend supplements at the start of the journey? Now, this very much depends on the way that you are actually advising people. So, for example, there was a period of time where I would run big online group coaching programs with like 100 people at a time. And that meant I would teach people in quite a uniform way to get everyone on board and following like a particular journey. Now, when you're coaching one-to-one, you can kind of do what you want. There's not really any particular rule or journey that the client goes on. The client has to go on a journey in their own time when they're ready, with ideally the lowest hanging fruit. And that's why I might talk about sleep a lot, because it's one of the lowest hanging fruits to optimal performance. Someone will eat better, think better, train better if you sleep better. So let's look at that low-hanging fruit.
Mhm.
So if a client came to me and said, Ben, I'm really motivated, I want to get back in the gym, used to do it years ago, put on a lot of weight. What supplements do you recommend? Now, an old me would have gone, whoa, let's not talk about supplements. Let's get your sleep sorted and then let's get your nutrition sorted and all the rest of it. Guess what happened? That person didn't go away and take my advice because that's not what he wanted to hear. At that point in time, his motivation was to go to the gym and start doing basically exactly what he used to do, which was probably lifting weights to build muscle and look good in the gym. So what I should have done is if encapsulated his energy and motivation right there and said, mate, that's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely love it. To be honest, you're probably good to start off with getting a protein powder. Let's make sure your protein's optimal. Let's get some creatine back in. That will probably serve you well. Let's look at your micronutrients and why don't we work from there? How does that sound? And then he might say, yeah, that's great. That's what I used to do. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And he's off. He's gone and bought it. He's done the thing. Like he's in the gym. Or he might have said, oh, well, I used to take this as well. And then I might say, okay, well, you could take a pre-workout, but actually you're complaining a lot about your sleep quality at the moment and you go to the gym at 7 o'clock at night. So taking a pre-workout is probably really counterintuitive to some of your other goals. So what I've done is I've realigned him based on some of his other problems, but not taking the wind out of his sails because he came to me with this like box of motivation, which I want to seal off and send it off. So what that really points to is coaching skill and using current motivation to drive the client forward. It might not be the most optimal thing that he's doing, but he's doing something. He's moving forward, he's taking steps. And then 4 weeks down the line, we can sit down and be like, how's what you're doing working for you? Can I talk about this? Because we've already got some results, we've already built trust, we've already built rapport, and I'm using the client journey to start to naturally and gently move him into the right direction rather than being like, nah, that's not right, I'm right. And then he's like, not sure
Yeah.
what to do. Because also he has an imprint of what worked before. So actually he's motivated to like pick up that past imprint and
Exactly.
apply it for success. But I've told him something different. And if he doesn't trust me, he's like, oh, but I did this and it worked. But Ben's saying this, I don't know if it's going to work. And then he's maybe caught. So he either has to go back and do it and like sack off my advice or do nothing. And so many people do nothing because people are constantly contradicting each other.
Right.
Whereas the art of coaching is to get people moving, like
It's
get
movement.
momentum
It
and
is.
correct along the way.
Absolutely. The word I was just hearing resonate all the way is just movement, isn't it? And supporting people and people that buy in. If you're sort of saying, no, 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 what you want to be doing is this. And they're going, but I quite like my little idea here. This has worked for me, and they'll start to trust you, won't they, over that time? And that's when you can get curious and say, talk to me about this. And, have you thought much about sleep? If you thought, where are you at with that? And they're like, oh, yeah. And doesn't have to be in session one, does it? And that truly is the skill of a great coach. So when we're talking around the field of nutrition, I'm going to be honest and say that as a tutor, we sometimes, when we were talking about nutrition, sort of, you would have people attending that had very strong views. I mean, exceptionally strong views. And I think you could have literally put a tub of protein powder in the middle of the room and go, right, okay, guys, I'm going to leave you for a whole 24 hours. Just talk it out. And I reckon I could come back and they'd still be debating about should they not, the quality of it. And it was, I understand that people come in with their own views and stuff. But I guess ultimately we want to make sure we know what we're talking about. It's evidence-based. It's not just from our own experience and what works for us. And I believe a true coach knows how to keep that movement and client and adapt well to what truly is going to make the best effect for that person. And I do see this one size fits all kind of thing that happens in the industry, which is I train 5 times a week, I take a protein, I do this, I do that. And then they almost impose that upon their clients. So can you make comment on that and the skills that you might encourage somebody to use different than thinking they got to do what I do? Because,
Mm,
for example, you've talked about your own personal journey, right? If you wanted everybody to do exactly what would work for you, do you think it would actually be effective? So I'm just kind of curious how you can encourage a fitness professional who's perhaps falling into the sort of the trap of thinking, well, if it worked for me, it's going to work for them. Uh, Over to you.
yeah. So I think a lot of us start out like that. And part of it is because we lack the experience of just coaching a lot of people, which is fine. When I was younger, it was also a bit easier because I got into my niche quite early.
Yeah.
And my niche was coaching people like me, to be honest, people that were into sport, into the gym, bodybuilding, wanted really good body composition. So the blueprints that I were following were probably quite effective for the clients that I was coaching. But if I'm a 30-year-old guy coaching a 45-year-old female that's pre-menopause, two kids, stressful job, like you've got to really stand back and go, I'm a very different person to this person. They have very different needs, circumstances, stresses, behavior, roadblocks. You've really got to stand back and just listen and piece things together. And I think we can potentially get caught up in wanting to move the client too quickly and get results. And that's a good thing. The fastest way to get client buy-in is to get them some kind of result early doors. Um, but if we can just listen, we can start to listen to the drivers. So the previous conversation we had around like supplements and that kind of gym guy example, if someone says, look, I really think I can make time to do X, don't say, well, I think it's better to do Y. Say, that's great. Let's do this for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then I might be able to say, do you think you could manage also doing this? And it might just be that someone said, I think it'd be a great idea to commit to 10,000 steps a day. And I'm like, that is a great idea. Do you think we could also commit to 2 liters of water a day? And then that way they've almost got this two-pronged, like 10,000, 2 liters, like this is my thing for the next 2 weeks. And all we're doing is we're building habit, we're building routine, we're building confidence, we're building self-worth, we're
Yeah.
developing results, and we're just slowly building this big snowball that's going to keep rolling down the hill and then keep rolling flat down the hill rather than going up and putting the weight back on and what have you. But again, that's the beauty of being a great coach. You first and foremost gather as much information as humanly possible. You listen, you find that little opening, and you're like, we're through it.
Yeah. Listening, right? It's such a key skill. All right. So nutrition, hot topic, right? And so what I'd love, I'm going to ask you, I think a bit of a tough question, actually. So prepare yourself. Um, I think around coaching, nutrition, um, there's a lot of people putting down one another. And I wanted to get your take on what you think to that. It's almost like belittling someone else's choices. I see it a lot in the effort of like, well, if I push them down, I go higher up. And so I just wanted to ask your view on this subject. I mean, you guys, have got so much experience, so much evidence behind you. I know you're really sort of curious about that, but it almost seems like this almost popular thing that I've seen in sort of the modern PT, which is I'm gonna call out anybody else and make it sound like they're talking BS. And I just wanted your take on it. Like, I would encourage someone not to be doing that. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So separating the kind of bits of that, bits of this narrative in that. So firstly, there's like a behavioral thing. So
Hmm.
first and foremost, as a coach, if we belittle the choices of clients and individuals, chances are it's not going to motivate change because it makes people feel bad about themselves, and they're probably likely, most people are likely to retreat rather than go, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong, like actually I'm right. Most people don't think like that. So we have to be tactful in our encouragement, again, of like supporting positive behavior, but readjusting within that support based on better evidence, better experience, etc. In kind of like the online and the information space, I don't have an issue with someone calling out or saying like this is wrong. Like, I have a narrative online at the moment on social media around a very popular podcast, and a lot of the guests that come on this podcast,
Yeah.
they will make big wild claims, and those claims are not evidence-based. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying, hang on a second, that's not an evidence-based claim, and I can show you the evidence behind that claim. I'm not personally attacking that person. I'm not saying, Dr. X, you're an idiot. Like, I'm saying, respectfully, here's the evidence. This is why I think you are wrong. And in a world where anyone can post information online, and we're all seeking truth, I think it's important to be the bearers of as much truth as possible. But you can do it with integrity. You can do it with passion. Empathy, compassion, and tactfully, rather than just like personally attacking someone, which is generally not going to work well.
Yeah, Ben, I love that answer. Really, really respect that answer. And I think, in the seeking of truth, I think that's really important. It shows that we're curious and stuff. So I think what happens, and I'm not talking about you, just so you know, what I see is this kind of style being used of just like, I'll put down, but then not necessarily saying why. So if you're gonna effectively call somebody out and just say, can we talk about the evidence here, because actually what we're saying here doesn't quite make sense to me. I get that, but I think there's a bit of a style in coaches that I see where it's just like, I'm just gonna slay everybody else around me. And I wonder whether that comes from not you seeking truth, but I wonder whether that comes from a sense of insecurity. I don't feel experienced enough. I just wondered whether you had comment on that for a coach who might start to feel themselves going down that line. And we see it a lot on social media because it gets engagement, right? So I just was kind of curious of what you felt, for a coach who might feel, I'm beginning to go down that path. Is that aligning with me? Because you're saying, you can seek truth with empathy, compassion, all those things, but sometimes I'm seeing this sense of I'm just gonna say everyone else is talking absolute poo, which is, I think, dangerous,
Yeah, I think at that point you don't quite have your ego in check, and you are potentially out of alignment with your values, and you are probably insecure because you're defending your position against someone else's. And what we shouldn't be doing is trying to defend our own position. We should be seeking truth. It's not a personal thing. Facts are facts, evidence are evidence. But outside of that, there is experience and anecdote, which also have value. We don't ignore those, but they have to be framed with the right level of context to say, this is my experience, layered on top of the evidence. Like, for example, calories are king, but there's this big interplay of how people consume calories and our environment around them and the behavior and types of calories. That's a big, nuanced and complex conversation. But we frame it as that underneath this baseline of, yes, we all know calories are king, and that sets the baseline of this kind of conversation. And I suppose there's potentially some other deeper stuff in there, like if someone is personally attacking someone online. And I know I used to do this when I was bullied as a kid. When I was bullied, I would bully others to make myself feel better. So when an individual starts to do that, you have to say, just ask yourself the question, why am I doing this?
What's going
And
on?
if it isn't, what's going on? If it's genuinely not, I'm seeking truth. Well, if I'm seeking truth, I wouldn't go about it in this way. I wouldn't personally attack someone. I would look at the evidence and make evidence-based comparisons and bring, the relevant examples into play, rather than going, that guy, Dr. Dave, he's an idiot. That's you trying to elevate yourself above Dr. Dave. But what you're not trying to do that. You're trying to take the evidence and put it above Dr. Dave so that opinion's pushed out via your presentation of the evidence, not a personal attack.
Brilliant. Love the answer. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about the influencer. All right, in our space. Don't worry, I've got an eye on the time. I know we've got to wrap up soon. This is my last question. And then I will obviously sort of follow up anything that you would like to cover off. But what about this sort of influencer sort of ideal that we get on social media and stuff like that? Sorry, it's such a loose term. It's such a loose question I've just sort of said. But, you know, around the nutrition space where perhaps, you know, being an ambassador of a company is, or you're advertising certain stuff that's obviously going to bring revenue. You know, where do we, who do we know who to follow? Who do we know to trust? Have you got any thoughts on that sort of, I don't know, the draw that new PTs might go to because they go, well, you know, we see it on social media all the time, you know, you can make billions of pounds and, you know, by running online courses, you can make this through nutrition stuff. What's your advice? What are your thoughts? What are, yeah, some of your gems of wisdom on it?
So a frustration of mine in the world of supplements comes back to our values conversation earlier, where we were saying, look, you're recommending companies make sure their values aligned. And for a long time, a lot of supplement companies weren't that ethical, weren't that evidence-based. And I know that because I used to work with many of them, and they would say that they were evidence-based, but then they'd be selling products like CLA, acai berry extract, like various thermogenics and stuff. And I'm like, none of these have any evidence behind them. So while you might say, oh, I refer my clients to this company, but I don't tell them to buy those products, you're still sending them to a company that isn't evidence-based. So you're saying that one of your values is evidence and data. Don't send them to a company that doesn't fully embrace that.
Yeah.
There's no half embracing data. There's no like, oh, I'll do it on Monday and Tuesday, but not Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Because if you send your client, Dave, Sheila, to that website, they're not just going to go and look at that product. They're going to go and have a look at the other ones, see what specials, see what other things help them achieve their goal. Then all of a sudden they've bought the 3 products you recommended, plus 2 other ones that were on offer or seemed good or whatever. And that's your fault as the coach because you sent them to an environment where they could get influenced in that way.
Yes.
So that's a big thing for me on the ethics of where you recommend people to go to for whatever it is, supplements, clothing, equipment, training stuff. When it comes to kind of like the world of being an influencer, like that is a very different job to being a coach. Like the amount of influencers I know, most of them spend most of their days behind a computer. They're like editing their videos, they're writing content scripts, they're learning filming styles, that kind of stuff. If you want to be a coach, be a coach. And then be a coach that has like a 1-page document of all the companies you recommend and your referral codes and, you know, the practitioners that you recommend and where they live. Like have these documents and processes in your business. That's very different to kind of like influencer life. And I see so many people as coaches, as practitioners that are frankly wasting their time trying to get lots of clients online via social media when they would be better off spending more of their time in person, building rapport, getting in front of real humans, building connection, building trust. Like when my last personal training job, like if I went and did it now, I would do exactly the same thing as I did 10, 12 years ago. And that is I would get on the gym floor and I would be there as much as humanly possible, delivering value, handing out nutrition guides, handing out free training plans, handing out tons of value and creating connections. I wouldn't be downstairs in the cafe of the gym posting my workout, hoping to get a client that happens to come to this gym. When we look at the tenets of business, the fastest way to do something is to get in front of a human, talk to them about how amazing you are, how you can help them achieve their goals. And the only way to do that, the fastest way to do that is human to human, not through social media, not through random luck, like being targeted. So So I think those are the two like nuanced bits of those conversations, but
Absolutely.
it's so important.
And you're talking about earlier, you were talking about confidence and skill. And that's not going to happen, is it? If when you and I were on the gym floor all those years ago, we just had to talk to people that what we couldn't hide behind something else. And you just have to get better at it, don't you? I love that. Thank you very much. So briefly talk to us about your supplements and what you're working on.
Yeah, so 2016, I was working with a supplement company, and I was frankly fed up with a lot of the things that they were trying to get me to do as a performance nutritionist. They didn't have a lot. They started to have more and more products that weren't evidence-based, and I was like, look, guys, I'm kind of out here. I'm not comfortable recommending this company to my clients. So I set up to try and change the narrative and the status quo and try to build a 100% evidence-based company where everything we do is 100% congruent with the evidence and nothing else. And then there was the kind of the taste conundrum where a lot of protein shakes didn't taste good, a lot of electrolytes drinks didn't taste good. So I thought, let's build a supplement company that puts the customer as the hero of their story. It then puts the evidence at the forefront of the formulations, and then thirdly, we make everything taste awesome. And that was nearly 8 years ago now. We've won 16 awards, and I suppose my hope is that any trainer that comes to look at awesome supplements goes, I can see their values. I can see what they're trying to do. I can see that there is evidence behind the product. I can see that they're not trying to sell anything that doesn't work. This is a company that I can get behind. This is a company I can refer my clients to. And if any trainers watching this thought that, then we have an ambassador program. That means you can win from referring your clients to us. So hopefully it is a win-win, but you are able to be proud that you're recommending your clients to a company that you can genuinely trust.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you've done the work behind it, haven't you? So amazing. Thank you. I just want to check in and see if there's anything that we haven't covered in our quest of talking around this big subject, and sort of throw it to you and sort of wrapping it up, like I say, cover anything that you feel that you'd really like to get out to our community. Over to you.
Yeah, I think if I was to end on anything that might help today is there's a lot of genuinely really amazing people in our industry. The trouble sometimes can be kind of finding them against the noise. And I think if you're able to find a couple of people that are really doing what you want to do on a coaching level, follow them, take their advice. The same on a business level, the same on a movement level, the same on a nutrition level. Because if we start inviting 10 different opinions in business, 10 different opinions in coaching, and it almost becomes too much. So find your like trusted inner advisor circle. Make sure the information you're studying is ideally targeted towards your goals. Like the amount of times I meet a trainer and they're listening to like 15 different podcast episodes a week of all these different types of topics. And I kind of think, I bet you're not able to have the time to implement all this knowledge because you're listening and digesting and consuming so much. Secondly, how much of it is random and is not actually solving problems? Like right now, if you've got the problem that I don't have enough clients, how much of your time is directed towards
Yeah.
solving that problem rather than keeping it random? And I
Yeah.
think if we can get the right kind of people saying the right kind of things, make our learning really targeted to develop specific skills that develop the problems that we're having or our interest areas, then we're going to thrive as a coach. And if you're unsure, get a coach. The amount of trainers I meet that don't have a coach to help them on their journey, like go and find a personal trainer that is 5 years ahead of you in their career and say, I would like you one session a month to sit down and just help. I want to pick your brains on how to be a better coach, how to be better in business, because that is invaluable. Like you might spend £100 a month on a 1 hour session with a great coach, but they might add £500 to your business every month because you're now a better coach, better leader to yourself. Like you understand business better. They've helped instill confidence in you. So I think investing in people that have been there and done it is a surefire way to always be more successful.
Amazing. All right. So where are these people going to follow you then?
I'm Ben Coomber all over the internet. Come say hello if you've got a question. DMs are always open.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ben. I really massively appreciate your time. One of the things that I know about successful people in this industry is they're really good at managing their time and, making sure it aligns well. So I hope that this has worked well for you. It's certainly worked well for FitPro and to the community. Thank you so much for listening in. And all I'm going to say is stay curious. Thanks, Ben.
Awesome.